You ever get that feeling, that strange kind of hollow feeling deep inside, even when on the surface, everything in your life seems totally fine? If that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. So let's get into it. Let's talk about this really common but super misunderstood feeling of emptiness.
I mean, you've got the job, you've got friends, you've got your routine, everything checks out. But there's just this nagging feeling that something's missing. It's not really sadness and it's not quite boredom, it's just flat, like the color has been turned down on your life. If you've ever felt that, then this is for you. You know, psychologists actually have a name for this: emotional emptiness. And it's really important we get this definition right. We're not talking about clinical depression here, which is often about a deep, heavy sadness. Emptiness is quieter than that. It's more of a numbness, a sense of being disconnected from your own life, like you're just watching it go by.
So where does this feeling even come from? Well, here's the good news. It's not some personal failing or a sign that you're broken. Science gives us some surprisingly clear answers, and, understanding the why is always the first step to figuring out what to do about it. Okay, let's start with a big one, a concept researchers have this great name for: the pleasure treadmill. It's one of the main reasons why just chasing happiness can ironically leave us feeling more empty than ever. The science behind this is something called hedonic adaptation. What does that mean? Well, basically, our brains are just wired to get used to good things really fast. That amazing new apartment, the thrill of that new relationship, that shiny new gadget. The initial buzz always fades as it just becomes your new normal. It's a built-in feature of being human, not a flaw. But hold on, it's not just our internal wiring. The world we live in today and our own emotional habits, they play a massive part in creating this feeling of emptiness. Let's break down a few key factors here. First, our brains are just swimming in constant digital newness, notifications, scrolling, clicks. It messes with our dopamine system, which is our brain's reward center, and it can make the slower, quieter rewards of actual real life feel, well, kind of dull. Second, a lot of us get really good at bottling up uncomfortable feelings. The problem is you can't just pick and choose what you numb. When you push down grief or anger, you end up pushing down joy and connection right along with them. And finally, when a huge part of your identity disappears, like you retire from a career you loved or a long-term relationship ends, it can leave this huge gaping void. And this brings us to a really crucial point, one that was put perfectly by the psychiatrist Viktor Frankl. Now, this was a man who survived the Nazi concentration camps, and he observed that the thing that kept people going in the most horrific circumstances imaginable wasn't the hunt for pleasure, it was the hunt for meaning. He argued that a lack of meaning creates what he called an existential vacuum, and that feeling of emptiness is what rushes in to fill that space. So, if a lack of meaning is the disease, then actively cultivating it has to be the cure, right? And this isn't just some nice philosophical idea. There's a whole science of meaning that shows us exactly what we need as humans to feel whole and fulfilled. At the very heart of it all are three fundamental psychological needs. It's from something called self-determination theory, and it basically says we all need to feel a sense of autonomy, like we're in the driver's seat of our own life. Competence, that we're good at what we do. And true relatedness, a genuine connection to other people. When one or more of those is missing, that empty feeling is an almost inevitable result.
And this table just lays it out so clearly. Our culture is constantly pushing us to chase pleasure. It's immediate, it's about taking, it's a quick hit. But meaning is different. It's something that lasts, but it usually takes some effort. It comes from giving, not taking. It's about connecting, not just solo experiences. A life spent only chasing pleasure often feels hollow in the end. A life built around meaning feels full.
Okay, so that's all the theory, but how do we actually do it? How do we switch from chasing pleasure to building meaning? Well, let's get practical. Let's open up the toolkit.
First up, tool number 1. This is the absolute foundation for everything else. You have to clarify your values. That feeling of emptiness is often just a giant alarm bell, signaling that the way you're living your life doesn't line up with what you actually deep down care about. So you have to ask, what's truly important to me? Honesty, creativity, community? Getting clear on that is your starting point. All right, our second practical tool is all about getting out of your own head and into an activity by actively pursuing flow activities. Have you ever been so into something that you totally lose track of time? Maybe it's playing an instrument or gardening or coding. That state is what psychologists call flow. And those moments are pure gold. They're powerful antidotes to emptiness because they demand your complete, focused attention. Third, and this is so important, we have to remember that meaning is almost never a solo mission. So the next step is to deepen your relationships. We're social creatures. We're just built that way. Research consistently shows that the quality of our social connections is one of the absolute best predictors of our overall well-being. This means we have to go beyond the superficial how are yous and invest real time and real vulnerability in our people. And that brings us to our fourth and final tool, which kind of ties it all together, by shifting our focus from inward to outward.
And that is to contribute to something bigger than yourself. Remember what Viktor Frankl said? Meaning is often found by looking outward. How can you serve? How can you contribute? It could be through your work, your art, volunteering, mentoring someone. Shifting your focus from what can I get to what can I give is maybe the most powerful way there is to fill that internal void.
Okay, that can sound like a lot, I know, but the key is to not get overwhelmed. Let's make this super simple. Let's break it down into tiny, actionable steps you can start taking literally right now. Here's your game plan. Today, just write down 3 things that are truly important to you, your core values. This week, look at your calendar and block out just 30 minutes for one of those flow activities. And long-term, start a tiny new habit, maybe 5 minutes every Sunday to just ask yourself, what felt meaningful this week and what felt hollow? That's it. That's how you start. So let's just end by completely reframing this whole feeling. If you walk away with one thing, let it be this. Feeling empty is not a sign that you're broken. It's not a personality flaw. It is a signal. Think of it like a compass, pointing you in the direction of a life with more meaning.
So the final question to ask yourself isn't, how do I get rid of this feeling? It's, what is this feeling trying to tell me? If you really listen to it, it might just be pointing the way to a much more fulfilling life.